Welcome to this week's edition of Rugby Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host, Jan de Koning, and as always with me, Lofi Elof. Eugene, welcome.
Hi, Jan, thank you. And we got a special guest here. He's actually a good friend of mine, but a legend of Paul Gym. And there's a reason why Nico Momsen is with us today. So, Nico, welcome. We usually speak Afrikaans, but today we've got the privilege of speaking English on this Unfiltered Rugby. And I think, Jan, maybe you would like to ask Nico a question?
Yeah, I will do. First of all, I have to apologize. When I chatted to Nico just now, I was told I don't stay in Durbanville, I stay in Durbanville. You got to get names right as well and accents right. But yeah, Nico, for an Afrikaanse word is leuk, but for outsider like me, I drove into Paul on Monday for a activation on mouth guards, and then I realized suddenly that what everybody's been talking about all these years, how big Interschools is in Paul. I mean, the trees are covered and there's flags and there's shops are bedecked in different colors from the two different schools. Where is this all started and why is it such a big event? I mean, it's literally the biggest schools rivalry in the world.
Good morning, Jan, Lofi. Lekker om saam met julle te wees. Just first of all, one correction there, Jan. These days, it used to be two schools, but these days we call it the three schools. It was Paul Boys High and Paul Girls High is very much involved in the ladies' school, with Paul Gym being co-ed. So until a few years ago, we also always said just like Paul Boys and Paul Gym. But these days it's very sensitive. And it's very important that we remember the girls' school. That's the girls' is also involved. And by the way, they are 150 years old this year, and they're celebrating that centenary now very much in big ways. Yeah, so get back to Interschools being can't remember actually exactly what you asked, but I think you asked why is it so big? One can say a lot of things, but I think it's just it's been coming on since the beginning of the previous century, more or less beginning of 1916, 1900s, and the first recorded game was 1915, the recorded score. And there's lots of stories about the boys that wanted to play rugby, but the headmaster wouldn't allow them. I don't know how many people know, but Paul Gym used to be a boys' school until 1964. So it's end of 1963. It was just a boys' school, and you won't believe at a certain stage, and the photos are on the walls in the school. It was called Paul Gymnasium Boys High School. Can you believe it? Paul Gymnasium Boys High School. And the neighbor school obviously don't like that. The name, if we mention that, there's only one boys' high school, they say. But it used to be a boys' school, and the headmaster those days wouldn't allow them to play. And there's lots of stories how they started playing. At a certain stages, they played for the town and so on, so on, so on. But anyway, then the derby or the inter-schools against Paul Boys was recorded since 1915. They say there was a 1 or 2 years, and obviously COVID time as well. That there was no games, and this year they say it's 111th one, 111. One can say a lot, but just quickly 1 or 2 things about the nice of the game or the speciality. Not one of the schools ran away with anything, got too strong or bigger scores and so on and so on. The average over the years, no, I haven't got it right in front of me, but it might be something like 6.5 versus 7.5. If you divide, the totals by 110, you get a very low average. Like, as I said, might be 6, 7 or something. It's crazy. And then another interesting thing, there were there were 3 years in history. There was the score. The end final score was 0-0, 0-0, and quite a number of 3-3s and 6-6s. Yeah, just show how close it was and how great rivalry it was. So until today, we have a saying that not one of these schools can get along or get on without the other. You know, kan nie bestaan nie. We totally wat do say mense afhanklik, dependent on the others' good performance and good everything in place. You know, to see a beautiful hoe noem mense dit nou? Ekskuus, voortbestaan of this beautiful tradition.
Yeah. Nick, I want to ask you. I mean, it's this is a rugby podcast, and we do speak a lot of rugby, but it's not just about rugby. I mean, there are other sports. I think it starts on the Monday. I think there were already clashes in other sports since Monday.
Yeah, just to give an idea for the listeners, Monday was the inter-schools golf inter-school. So that was great. There were 5 teams playing. Paul Jim won the first team, incidentally. And the rest, Paul boys won. But 5 teams of 6 boys that played golf. Tuesday there was the chess inter-schools. And today the rugby start, and the netball and hockey start, and on Friday it's big girls school, Paul Girls versus Paul Gymnasium. Netball and hockey is also big, and then the rest of rugby on Friday at Brug Street. They're down there at Paul Boys Ice Field or grounds, Brugstraat. And then Saturday, the 4 main games on Forest Street, the Townfield. Saturday morning, also the boys hockey. That's also a very big crowd puller. Tuesday evening was squash into schools. We mustn't forget that. There's just about everything, man. Yeah. Obviously not tennis and the summer sports that has been done in February.
I want to ask, I mean, to me, it boggles the mind. You hear of crowds of 10,000 and 15,000 attending these events. But I was there at Brug Street on Monday, and I have no idea where the people's going to park, because there's not a lot of parking in that part of the world.
Yeah, there isn't. At Brug Street and Goldside, they have a huge problem with parking. Yeah. Parking is another story, but Brug Street, it's you must remember, it's only the Friday games, or today, the like the E and F and G. It's today, the rugby, because tomorrow is the primary schools. They use Brug Street as well. Paul Boys Primary and Paul Gymnasium Primary. They play tomorrow. So that's why the lowest senior teams, they play today. And then Friday, the rest, and Saturday, the 4 main teams. But that is at the town stadium, Forest Street. Don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes.
Near the City Hall. Yeah, that's then that can host around 22,000, and then they stop it for safety purposes.
I just want to tell you, 2 gentlemen, that I'm actually going to watch those lower teams, the E teams, because there's a lot of talent there as well, and they're playing with the same pride as the A team. And I had a chat about it the other night when I had a talk. But Nico will also tell you, in this little town of us, everybody is friends. They go to church together, but this specific week, you don't bride together. You don't talk with each other. And the first time they meet up again is Sunday at church. And the one group, their lips hang, and the others are very excited. But then life goes back to normal here in the Paul.
Yeah, I want to ask Nico, maybe you can also come in here. We hear so much about the build-up and all these little events, and it's a big occasion. It's like the town stands still, and everything revolves around this week. What does it take to organize a thing like this? Because this is not something you organize in a day or two. I mean, there must be enormous enormous organizational that goes into this.
Yeah, without mentioning all details, but we have a instelling, a use that obviously this year it's Paul Boys and Paul Girls are hosts. Next year Paul Jim is host, and then you have all the admin to do. But a few years ago, I'm not sure, I think it was just after COVID, there was like a company gestig formed, which is called Wêreld Interskole. So that makes it much easier. All the organization goes through that, you know, the health and safety, the police, the municipality, the fire department, and then all the sponsors, all the vendors, it runs through that. Call it a company. It's not like a company like winsgewend, but anyway. And then at the end of the day, if there was any profit, it would be shared amongst the 3 schools, pro rata. So that helps a lot with that, with all the admin, with all the organization. Both schools, or all 3 schools, I suppose. I'm not sure about the girls, but both Paul Jim and Paul Boys have commercial departments, kantoor, commerciële span. I'm also these days part of the commercial team, who puts a lot of things in place months ahead, you know. Then there's also the Old Boys Union of Paul Boys and Girls, and then by Parel Gymnasium, so studente organisatie, they arrange reunions of guys that were our 10 years groups, 20 years group, 30 years, 40, 50, up to 60 years. They have reunions. Then there's obviously the informal reunions of the guys that say, no, when we are on a 15 or a 25, we also want to get together. So that's been coming also like for ages, not ages, but, you know, decades, those reunion groups. And it's big, as you said, there's a lot of influx into town. The restaurante loop oor. There's no places for, you know, you can't book a table. Everything is just fully booked. But it's good for the businesses and good for everything. And yeah, as you said, you saw the trees decorated and shops decorated and so on. The vibe is good. And Sunday afternoon by 4, everything is cleaned up. Monday, you won't see any banner anymore. It's just special the way it runs. The machine runs well. It's smooth. The organization and everything is just like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. I just want to ask Lofi, Eugene, you must envy the fact that your team can't attract 1,000 people for a Currie Cup game, and yet there's 20-odd thousand people attending a schools game in Paul.
What team are you talking about now? My team?
That red and white team that you support in Johannesburg.
Okay, but you know what, it's very true, but you cannot compare this. I just want to stick to this before I will never hammer the Lions. Ellis Park, as we know, is not situated in a good place. But I just want to come back. You know, a lot of people watch this final day, or the main event, as they call it, on TV, and you get an idea. But you've got no idea unless you're there at the stadium on the day to see these kids, both sides, just supporting the teams. They got bands playing. They got vendors around. People high-fiving each other, and the rugby itself is massive. And you can be number 1 school, as Gim is currently, or you can be number 10 on this day. All happens. It's what happens in those 70 minutes on the field, or 80 minutes, or how long ever they play. What happens there between those 4 lines. So because I know one of the questions you have will be, what's our predictions? And I know it will be very unfair, but I've got my prediction. But Jan, I think Nico mentioned 22,000 people. I think 1 year, Nico, I don't have it wrong, they said it was about 30,000 that sneaked in. And it's fully full. It's just an enormous thing. And I know we have support throughout the world. You know, South Africans throughout the world that was at one of these schools that actually stream it and watch it.
Well, Lofi, you just opened the door now, so now I am going to ask you, First you, and then maybe Nico can tell us. I suppose you both back the same school, but please tell us what the result's going to be on Saturday.
Okay, I'll let Nico go first.
Jan, last year Paul Jim, I think, was number one on in the rankings. That's another debate, the rankings. But anyway, incidentally, we were number one. Paul Jim was number one, and Paul Boyser was number two. And on that day it changed. And Paul Jim had an excellent team, and they played well also on the day. But the last 20 minutes, things just changed. Paul Boyce came with, we don't go into detail, but they just played so excellent the last 20 minutes and scored a winning try and beat Paul Jim with 1 point. I can't exactly. Let me see. The score was 35-33, 2 points. I want to make a prediction. I always say it's 0-0. As iemand my vra, it's 0-0. Because it's just impossible. But I don't know how much time we have. I can quickly tell you about. It was a few years that Paul Jim was some people say, the underdog always win. It's not a fact. It often happened. There was one year that Corné Krieger was also, I think Corné was grade 11, and a Basson guy, what's his name now? Hein Basson was captain of Paul Boys 92. And they had an excellent year, and they made a big banner. Supporters made a big banner which says Hein Basson and his dream team. And they stood on the pitch with this big banner when during that ceremony, that voorstelling ceremony. And that team, can you believe it, didn't win. Hein Basson and his dream team, because Marius Joubert's brother, Dion Joubert, just scored a try towards the end. And against all odds, Paul Jim won. But that was just one example. In 1997, it was a year that Marius Joubert was matric center. And that team of Paul Jim was defeated everyone in the country. And I remember that was the first year they had rankings, or they started rankings. Paul Jim was the favorite, number one in the country, etc., etc. Halftime, the score was Paul Jim 0, Boys at 10. Can you believe it? Well, Paul Jim eventually won that game 13-10, but it was nail-biting and a lot of nerves that made me grey, as you can see. Anyway, it was good times, but those are just examples you can't predict. 2008, when Paul Jim was 150 years, it was very special. You had 150 celebrations and big day. And then Paul Jim was also the favorite team with Luis Schreder and those guys. And Paul Jim, against all odds, who was the favorite, won 35-8. And I just said, this is proof that you don't have to be the underdog to win. The favorite can also win if they just play their normal game and play like they usually play, etc., etc. Yeah, I can go on for long, Jan, but I can't make a prediction. XN 0-0.
Okay, but that's fair on you. It's also fair. I agree with what Nico said, but I prefer going into a big match. I'm not even just relating to this match. Going into a match as the underdogs, I prefer it. But then I'll tell you what I think. Last year hurt the boys. They're still feeling that pain, and I believe that this year is going to be a good year for Paul Jim. That's about it.
There we go.
Nico, het was lekker om jou hier te hê, my ou maat.
Dankie, Loffie. It was a voorreg. Dankie, ja. Dankie vir die uitnodiging.
Jan, I also have to tell you that me and Nico, we will have a red wine with the legendary Cobus Wiese tonight and a few of the Jim Box and friends. So it's a tradition that we're going to fulfill.
Eugene, now that we've moved on from the schools, and it's very interesting. I mean, I know we can talk hours about that, but Rasmus had a press conference yesterday, and I was privileged enough to sit in on that. And clearly he was playing his cards close to his chest, so he wasn't giving too much away. And I know he's announcing his squad that's going to Argentina on Saturday. So we'll play that clip and what Rassie said. But at this stage, with the greatest rivalry coming up later this month, I think the one thing is what Rassie's done very well this year, and what he's going to need to continue doing well, is player management.
Yes, Jan, you're right, and I can understand why he's vague in a sense with who's going to rest. Well, he's made it clearly who's going to rest, who's available, who's not, and how he's going to select his team. Because you've got it spot on. It's going to be a long season coming now, and what came out, which I found is the fact that we're all missing. Everybody's talking about the rivalry in the All Blacks. It's going to be fantastic, but we need to beat Argentina next weekend, and I think he made it clear that that's where their focus is. His words were actually that they need to get over that hurdle, and it is a hurdle. You don't go to Argentina and just win. If you arrive there and you're not mentally prepared and really prepared, it could be a long day, although Argentina's been battling. So I really don't understand why Rassie is holding the cards close to his chest.
Well, I think at this stage, let's listen to what Rassie has to say, and then we chat a bit further, Loffie.
There's only two guys that won't be available. I mean, there's obviously the long-term injuries to Kwagga and Erge and so on, but guys that we thought that will return this year, it's only Ox and Franco Mostert that is not available for next week's game. Apart from that, everybody, Ethan, Kane, Sasha, Eben, Loot, who else? Mornay, everybody's ready. So, yeah, it wouldn't be ideal, but yeah, our first thing is we want to beat Argentina. And I can see everybody's asking questions about New Zealand, but we have to beat Argentina next week. So let's get past that hurdle. All of our guys have played a lot of URC rugby. Most of our players has been involved in the first 3 matches. So we feel comfortable that over a 4-test match series against New Zealand, you probably shouldn't peak in the first game and then not be able to last the last 4 games, for all 4 games. So, and that included now Argentina's 5 games. So that's if you want to call it, that's 5 games in a row that we must produce. So I think when it gets to the crucial games in that greatest rivalry, our guys will be okay. Yeah, well, there's obviously a few goals that you have. I mean, the first one is we would like to, every test match that we play, we try to win, we plan to win, and I think every other team in the world is like that. So the first reason is when you pick a team is to try and beat Argentina, obviously. Then there's a much bigger plan, like I think most countries have right now. That's the World Cup that's in the background, which we all know a year out from the World Cup, you must start making plans to make sure you know what your World Cup squad look like. Then there's a Nations Champions Cup, which is we're taking part in currently, and then you have to respect the team that you play next week, which is Argentina, and then you play the greatest rivalry only after that. So, as I said to the previous, I can't remember who asked the question, we are fairly confident that we 100% know how tough the New Zealand tour is going to be for them coming here and us playing them here. But a 4-test match series is long. And the last test match in Baltimore, so and then playing midweek matches. So we would have played after Argentina, we would have played 5 matches, and then we play the first match and try and win the first match, and then after that, you know, it's another 3 test matches. So I really don't think you want to say from game 1 we are so ready that. I think you want to build so that when it comes to the crunch match, and I don't think any of us think the other team is going to beat the other team 4-0. I think it's going to be much tougher than that. But it's, we've learned our lessons many times against Argentina. If you take your foot off the pedal, you can get a hiding there. And we certainly want to try and prevent it. Yeah, I think us, New Zealand and Argentina and Australia in a way, always, not that we have a problem, but we always struggle to find our feet in our first match. You saw our New Zealand struggled against France, who didn't even send their first choice team there. I mean, they struggled to find their feet in the first test match, and then they just got stronger and stronger. We also didn't hit the ground running just because we only played in November, just like New Zealand and Australia and Argentina. I think Argentina's big thing, I know Filippo really well, as a friend and as a very, very good coach. Their players play all over the world, and they don't play in a club competition together. And whilst we are picking also from all over the world, there's a core group of players in South Africa that we always can get into alignment camps and stuff, and they normally don't have that. So I guess the last test match could have gone either way against England for them. And you could see they're building momentum, and it's every year like that for them, because it takes time after the November series, and then you don't have a Six Nations like the other countries have. But then on the flip side, the end of the year, then the other countries are also playing URC, and we play Test match rugby right through, and then we have the advantage again at the end of the year. So I think that's what happened to Argentina, and I've seen they picked a squad now with 10 rookies in there. But if you look at their first choice team, I think the team that we will take over there, they will definitely have more caps than our players, although they pick a very inexperienced group, but there's like core 15 guys that's really experienced that they can fall back onto it, which will form their spine. So it will be a difficult match.
It did very interesting. I mean, Rassie clearly pointed out that players like Sia needs game time, Eben, Loot, Sasha, those guys, we all know they're going to play. They need game time ahead of the All Black test. So I think that there were 10 players that's coming back, Andre Pollard, players that's coming back from injuries that need game time. I know Ox is injured, and Francois Mostert is also still injured. So we got 10 guys that we know that's going to start. So it's very interesting, and it's going to also be a very experienced team. That's the other obvious thing. It's going to be a very experienced team.
Yes, Jan, absolutely. And again, as I also mentioned, it's important for us to win that match. We are all focusing and looking forward to the All Black game, but it's important to win this match, and it's important for those players to get game time, and we must also be honest here. We slowly but surely putting in stepping stones and foundations for next year's World Cup. That's all part of the process, and the competition's building up now to next year. And Rassie's been managing it brilliantly.
Well, there we have it. Eugene, thank you very, very much. I know it's a full program, and we probably can carry on for hours, but I think let's leave some for next week when we talk about the box in Argentina. So from myself, Jan de Koning.
And Eugene Eloff, have a great day, and lekker rugby kykie in die Parel.
Till next week. Cheers.